Now, one of the ways that we can get a look at the graph of a line fairly quickly and easily is by using our graphing calculator. Let's take a look at how we enter an equation to graph it on a calculator, though. So in order to get out the list of graphs, we hit just this y equals button. Notice that mine has an option for colors, yours probably doesn't. That's the only difference with this calculator and the ones that you probably have. But notice the form that these equations have to be in. These have to be in the form y equals something. That means if we have an equation that looks something like 3x minus 4y equals 10, we can't just put this into the calculator in this form. We need to rewrite our equation in slope-intercept form before entering it in the calculator. So how would we go about rewriting this equation in slope-intercept form? Well, to be in slope-intercept form, y has to be by itself. All right, so let's see how we would do that. What's keeping y from being by itself? Well, there's this x term over here, so we need to get rid of that. How can we get rid of that? Well, by subtracting 3x from both sides. Right, 3x minus 3x is nothing. So now we'll have negative 4y is negative 3x plus 10. Right, can't combine those, they're not like terms. Alright, now all that's keeping y from being by itself is that it's multiplied by this negative 4y. How do we get rid of that? We divide both sides by negative 4. Alright, so negative 4y divided by negative 4 is just y. Negative 3x divided by negative 4. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. So this is going to be positive 3/4 x. Positive 10 divided by negative 4, though. Well, that's going to be negative 10/4. I could simplify that fraction, but I don't have to, because my goal is to get this thing into the calculator. So how do I enter this? Okay. Again, I'm in that y equals screen. So I'm going to enter my 3/4 in parentheses. X minus 10/4. And now I'm going to look at the graph. Okay, so I see my graph sloping upward, which I would expect with a slope of 3/4. But I noticed something. My x-axis is kind of stretched out here, so I'm not getting a real good idea of what the slope looks like. In order to get the x-axis not stretched out, I press this zoom button and I select option 5, zoom square. What that does is it makes the tick marks on the x-axis the same distance apart as the tick marks on the y-axis. And now we can see that the slope, that looks pretty good for 3/4, right? It's not quite the 45-degree diagonal. It's a little bit shallow, but not too shallow. I'm going to have you try one of these as well. Use your calculator to graph the equation 3x plus 7y equals 13. Pause the video and try this now. Okay, well again, we need to get this in slope-intercept form. So we'll start by subtracting 3x on both sides. We'll be left with 7y equals negative 3x plus 13. Divide both sides by 7. We'll get y equals negative 3 over positive 7 is negative 3/7 x plus positive 13 over positive 7 is just 13/7. And in fact, we can't simplify this fraction, but even if we could, we don't have to. So now we want to enter that equation on our calculator. we'll put negative. Now let's take a minute and look at some buttons on this calculator. In particular, this button here has a little negative sign in parentheses. This button here has a minus sign, meaning subtraction. When we want to enter a negative number on the calculator, we need to use this button here. So, negative, and then 3/7 x plus, what was our y-intercept? 13/7. And graph. Notice the tick marks on our x-axis are still the same distance apart that they were on the y-axis because we haven't changed the zoom. So we don't need to say zoom square again. And again, this slope looks about right. Negative 3/7. Right, this should be a fairly shallow line. Negative 3/7 is fairly close to 0. And our y-intercept looks about right. It's positive. So this is our graph.